There are, so many ways to start a new life. Some people, well, they move to a new country. Some go so far as to change their names. Others maybe just take up yoga. But Archie Jones? He tried to start over by gassing himself in a halal butcher's van. Unfortunately, or I suppose fortunately, depending on how optimistic you are, his suicide plan failed. Not because of any sort of divine intervention, but simply because the butcher, Mo Hussein Ismail, kindly asked him not to kill himself on his property. That's how unceremoniously our protagonist failed at dying. With that, Archie, British, indecisive, and honestly, pathologically average, gets a brand new lease on life and dives straight into hedonism, surrounded by a house full of weed-smoking teenagers who had all come together to celebrate the non-arrival of the apocalypse, which, by the way, had been predicted by Jehovah's Witnesses. And right in the middle of this chaotic stew of confused joy and teenage rebellion, he meets Clara Bowden. Clara is Jamaican, beautiful, and, well, missing 2 front teeth thanks to a motorbike accident. She also happens to be the daughter of Hortense Bowden, a fanatically religious Jehovah's Witness who walks around with the end of the world hanging off her shoulder like a purse. Clara, rebelling against her mother's end-of-days hysteria, dives right into Archie's arms. And somehow, despite a 28-year age gap, a complete lack of common interests, and objections from both Hortense and Clara's boyfriend, Ryan Tops, they actually get married. Now cue the Iqbals. Samad Mia Iqbal is Archie's best friend from their World War II days. They didn't really see much action. Samad a bit more than Archie, but still. The British government didn't care. Neither did the Olympic Committee, which, by the way, failed to record Archie's 13th place finish in cycling at the 1948 London Olympics. Samad, a one-handed former scientist from Bangladesh, migrated to Britain with his wife Alsana. Their life? Well, it's a comedy of cultural negotiation. Samad, ever the self-important patriarch, finds himself working humiliatingly under a younger family member in a restaurant. Alsana sews endlessly just to keep the family afloat. Both families end up having children around the same time. Clara gives birth to a daughter, Irie Ambrosia Jones. Alsana to twin boys, Millat and Magid Iqbal. At this point, the book really transitions into the real meat of the story, parenting in an unfamiliar culture. Samad, terrified that his sons will become westernized zombies, decides he has to rescue at least one of them. So, in a bit of a collusion with Archie, he kidnaps Magid and sends him off to Bangladesh to learn faith, tradition, and hopefully, to stay away from the dangerous charms of Western rationalism. But as with every plan in this story, that one fails too. Magid ends up being the most English of them all, embracing science, shaving his beard, and coming back not as a devout Muslim, but as an aspiring lawyer and a disciple of rational thinking. And what of Millat, the son who stayed? Well, he zigzags through every subculture available, smoking weed, chasing girls, joining gangs, and finally lands in Kevin, keepers of the eternal and victorious Islamic Nation, a radical Islamist group determined to defend the faith and keep Western science in its place. Meanwhile, Irie, torn between identities and teenage crushes, undergoes chemical hair straightening to look beautiful for Millat. When that fails, she opts for a weave made from Indian hair. It's a painful metaphor of how young black women are pushed to reject their own identity. As Smith Riley notes, the poorest emigres spend fortunes changing their appearance, while the Indians, equally poor, shave and sell their hair for money. Smith's statistics on black hair care are eye-opening and sad. And Irie's hair becomes a symbol for the central identity struggle that the characters wrestle with to assimilate or resist, to change or remain anchored in a culture that no longer fits. Enter the Chalfens, a middle-class British family of Jewish descent, proud of their intellect, but clueless about real life. Marcus Chalfen, the patriarch, is a geneticist working on a project he dubs Future Mouse, a mouse genetically programmed to live for 7 years and die on cue, a mouse with a set destiny. When Irie, Millat, and Joshua Chalfen, Marcus's son, are caught smoking hemp at school, their punishment is to attend biology study sessions at the Chalfen home. What could go wrong? So Joyce Chalfens, who's the matriarch and a horticulturist, finds herself a bit obsessed with Millat. She genuinely believes she can save him, which is, well, quite something. Meanwhile, Marcus gets really intrigued by Irie's cousin, Magid. Even though Magid was sent off to Bangladesh, he comes back all intellectually polished and honestly eager to help out with Future Mouse. And this, well, it all leads to the grand convergence. As the new millennium is about to begin, Marcus is gearing up to reveal Future Mouse to the world. But the venue, it turns into a chaotic battlefield of ideologies. Kevin, with Millat at the helm, is plotting to disrupt the event, convinced that Marcus is playing Allah. Then there's Fate, that's fighting animal torture and exploitation, a pretty radical animal rights group now joined by Joshua. They want to either free the mouse or maybe even hurt Marcus. Outside the hall, Hortense and Ryan Tops, both Jehovah's Witnesses, are protesting with tambourines and hymn books, saying Marcus is playing Jehovah. And of course, Samad, Archie, Irie, and their relatives are all there too, each one showing up with their own mix of reluctant support or disapproval. So what's the result of all this? Chaos, pure and simple. Every faction is fighting for control. And right at the center, Future Mouse, this genetically determined rodent, suddenly becomes the battleground for all these huge questions about fate, identity, science, and, well, even God. The name of this chaotic, hilarious, tragic, and brilliant novel? White Teeth by Zadie Smith. It's a novel of 542 pages and honestly one that's absolutely worth every single one of them. Now, White Teeth isn't just about families or funny failures. It's about identity, globalization, immigration, and, well, those generational gaps that can feel like chasms. It satirizes and humanizes the migrant experience in modern Britain. Samad, for instance, is a man split in two. A devout Muslim in a secular society, a Bengali man in London, a father who wants control in a world that's constantly changing the rules. His failure to save Magid reflects a larger question. Can tradition survive globalization? There's this moment where Samad tries so hard to retain his son's cultural purity only for Magid to return as a flag bearer of Western rationality. And that, perhaps, is Zadie Smith's most damning critique. Tradition cannot be imposed by force, nor preserved by exile. Millat, on the other hand, chooses radicalism. Not necessarily from religious conviction, but from an identity crisis. He's British, yet not accepted. He's Muslim, but also addicted to Western freedoms. Kevin offers a form of belonging that the larger society denies. Irie's journey is equally poignant. Her struggle with beauty, hair, and identity reflects a painful truth many Black women experience. Zadie Smith doesn't hold back. The statistics provided regarding the amount of money Blacks spend on their hair was amazing. And the saddest part was the poorer emigres would have to spend so much money to change their look. And when it comes to religion versus science, Smith presents a buffet of ideologies: Jehovah's Witnesses, Islamic fundamentalists, atheists, and mad scientists, each with their own blind spots. This quote really cuts deep.
What was it about this unlovable century that convinced us we were, despite everything, eminently lovable as a people, as a species? What made us think that anyone who fails to love us is damaged, lacking, malfunctioning in some way? And, particularly if they replace us with a god or a weeping Madonna or the face of Christ in a ciabatta roll, then we call them crazy, deluded, regressive. We are so convinced of the goodness of ourselves and the goodness of our love, we just cannot bear to believe that there might be something more worthy of love than us, more worthy of worship. Greetings cards routinely tell us everybody deserves love. No, everybody deserves clean water. Not everybody deserves love all the time.
It's this level of philosophical weight, delivered with satire and style, that makes White Teeth a modern classic. Smith also peppers the novel with historical references, like the fall of the Berlin Wall and the Satanic Verses controversy, to anchor the story in a real and turbulent world. Her characters speak in a variety of dialects: Jamaican patois, street slang, scientific jargon, religious sermons, and yet each voice is distinct. You never lose track of who's speaking or why they matter. Zadie Smith was only 24 years old when White Teeth was published in 2000. It exploded onto the literary scene, earning her comparisons to Salman Rushdie and Martin Amis. Born in northwest London to a Jamaican mother and an English father, Smith knew the terrain of multicultural Britain intimately, and it shows. Her portrayal of immigrants, their fears, dreams, contradictions, is unflinchingly honest, yet full of humor. Since White Teeth, Smith has gone on to write several other novels including On Beauty, Swing Time, and NW, each continuing her exploration of identity, culture, and belonging. So if you're looking for a novel that will make you laugh, think, and maybe even Google Jehovah's Witness failed prophecies, White Teeth is worth your time. Whether you're a migrant, a second-gen trying to balance your name with your postcode, or just someone wondering why your hair budget exceeds your rent, this book gets it. And in a world that often demands we choose between past and future, culture and progress, science and belief, White Teeth reminds us that the mess is where the truth lives. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and keep reading. Hey, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you're interested in diving deeper into this book, I've left some links down in the description. You can use it to grab yourself a copy and keep the adventure going. And if you're in the mood for more great reads, don't go just yet. Click on one of the videos popping up right now that I think you'll love. And don't forget to give this review a like, leave a comment, or even subscribe if you'd like to see more. Every bit of support helps us grow this little community of book lovers. See you in the next one.